Our next guest on the Any Given Monday podcast is a running coach that has worked with over 200 Olympians with 36 Olympic medals. He is a sports therapist, strength coach, acupuncturist, and nutritionist. Oh, and despite being born with cystic fibrosis, he also runs marathons, claiming the European record in Dublin with a 3:09 marathon in 2017, and is the CF world record holder from 5K to 13.1. Evan Scully, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. How are you getting on?
Just that was a lovely intro.
I do try. I do
He's
try.
nice sometimes, isn't he? Funny though, because
Do
before
you
we come on
practice
air,
these in the shower or something?
That's what I do. It's just keep saying it to myself all day, and I go right. I go for a run. I just repeat that in my head to get myself through a run, and just try and nail it. But right before, I see Eric's beady eyes on me, and he's like, "Mess up a single word, pal," and I have you. That's how I start my intro, and I can see him every time. So I'm waiting for him to chime in with something here.
you better keep my name out of your mouth when you're in the shower, Sean, you scumbag.
So our guest, Eric, our guest.
I definitely wasn't going to interrupt this little love story.
Evan, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
What a phenomenal achievement list. And in fairness to Sean, he did you justice by keeping it right this weekend and getting it right. Where did it all start for you? Because obviously people listening are going to go cystic fibrosis. That means you shouldn't be active according to everyone.
I shouldn't be here, not active. I shouldn't be here.
Exactly. Let's start there, I suppose. If you could give a brief description of cystic fibrosis, I'm sure a lot of the listeners know what it is, but what does it mean for you and what is it in your life?
So everyone thinks that CF is a lung disease or a lung problem, but it affects nearly every organ in the body, from the reproductive system, and I'll get onto that in a sec. Actually, I probably shouldn't have said that, but in that way, I'm perfectly fine. But I'll talk about my son in a second. So yeah, it affects the lungs, digestive system, pretty much everything. And Ireland has one of the lowest life expectancies in the world. So before the new medication, it was 32 years of age. And now with the new medication, it's kind of going up and up. So it's probably about 38 in Ireland at the moment, where in Australia, back when Ireland had a life expectancy of 32, it was 60 in Australia. And then if you drove over the border up north, you could live an extra 4 years. So kind of felt a bit like Benjamin Buttons crossing the border going, geez, I'm alive again.
What's different?
Healthcare. I would presume it's healthcare. So in Australia, healthcare plus climate. But Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland have the same climate. So that has to be healthcare then. So yeah, when I was born in 1986, actually my mum blamed my CF on Chernobyl, because in 1985 Chernobyl went off and she was pregnant with me then. So it's a genetic disorder, it's not a nuclear disorder. So yeah, when I was born, nobody knew what CF was in my family. I was diagnosed when I was 5 months old, so it took them 5 months to realize what it was. I wasn't thriving. At 3 months old, I still wasn't at my birth weight, or like when I was born. I just kept on getting skinnier and pooing everywhere, not digesting anything. So they gave me a life expectancy of 10. And then when I got to 10, it was 18. And then when I got to 18, I presume they just gave up guessing then, because I'm double 18 now. I'm 38 at the moment. So yeah, so it was, it's probably a blessing that Google wasn't around at that stage, because my mom and dad would have just like Googled what CF is. And when I met my now wife, that was 18 years ago, I was like, just don't Google CF, because it'll scare you. And it's just bad news and life expectancy. And then if you live much past your life expectancy, it's not really a life. You're just waiting to die, basically. So yeah, when people see me with CF, firstly don't think I have CF. And I've gotten a few inboxes on that as well, that I'm actually making it up. Which is a weird thing to make up. But yeah, I was it makes it look like CF isn't that bad, but it also then takes away from what my parents did with me when I was younger. It was like physio sessions 5-6 times a day, and that's like clapping on the lungs and the chest, and that would have been about a half an hour each. And then things like turning me upside down and running up and down the hallway, letting gravity do the work. Trying to bring the mucus up is basically the objective there. So yeah, I kind of fell into running in a way that way. I was always active. It was never, oh, it's raining out, don't send Evan outside. Like, our skin is pretty waterproof. We're not going to catch something if it's cold or raining. Like, so I remember doing my first race when I was about 4 years old. I had to beat Dave McCarthy from last week, this week, where what was he, 8 when he started. So yeah, it was a run till you drop, and I was 4 years old, but I was racing people who were like 10 and whatnot, and I just didn't stop. It was kind of like a Forrest Gump moment, and they had to tell me to stop. And I can remember it. I don't remember much from my childhood, but I remember that. So I swam, played football, as in soccer, did a bit of gymnastics and stuff like that. But I've been running properly since about 6th class, and I haven't stopped really. I remember doing my first cross country race in my school uniform and came home filthy. And like, my mom didn't say anything. She was just happy I was out running and clearing my lungs. And going back to CF for a sec, actually. So people think that we have a lower immune system, or we have a suppressed immune system. We get sick quite easily, but that isn't the case if you don't have mucus in your lungs. So mucus is the perfect breeding ground for bacteria. So if you have loads of mucus in your lungs, bacteria and infection is just going to thrive on that. But if you don't have it, then your immune system is the same as everybody else. And that's where I'd probably say I'm obsessed with running, but it's a good thing because I don't let mucus settle in my lungs.
Exercise is literally medicine then for you. It clears the mucus then. So the more you train, the less effects you get.
Pretty much, yeah. I posted a video. So my first marathon in 2017 in Dublin, I posted a video about 4 days after.
Watched
And
it.
yeah, like it sounds
You
like
don't want to have a light
sounds
stomach watching that.
yeah. Do I have a content warning on it?
You don't. I didn't know what I was getting. No,
Good.
no. You did say it says graphic on it, and it's great. Watch is not the right way to put it. Nor I don't know how to exactly put it, but just insightful, I suppose, on what you go through a couple of days after. And I was like, my God, like, sore legs is one thing, but what you were going through, that's nasty, mate.
It actually surprised me, to be honest with you, as well. I usually, after a season when I was growing up, I'd probably take about a week or two off, but I would substitute with that with things like Pep Mask, which is like a breathing apparatus to try bring up mucus and stuff like that. But I was just like, oh, here, I can't be arsed doing this. I'm just after running the marathon. I should be okay. But I was like, geez, I was just coughing up loads of phlegm. So that's what happens if I don't run. And it's pretty quick. It happens pretty quickly. Like, that was like 4 days. So thankfully, because of that, the new medicine that came out, I think I'm on it since 2021, I can afford to take a bit more time off. And going back to how it affects different organs, just in case people drift off and go, what was he on about with the reproductive system? So
all I've been thinking about, Evan, and no offense, in Sean's intro,
you're thinking about people in showers on my reproductive system. That's a bit weird.
That's not a good episode you've ever.
Sean brought me into this level. He brought me here. This is it.
Sean has nothing to do with this one.
So if CF is a genetic disorder, so 2 parents have to have the gene, and then if 2 parents have the gene, it's a 1 in 4 chance if the child will have CF. Now, if one person doesn't have the gene, then there's no chance of CF happening. Now, if one person has the gene and one person has CF, then it's a 50-50 chance of the baby having CF. And what people don't understand is that CF, we can't come in contact with each other. So I've never met another person with CF. And that's a cross-infection thing. So that 2 meter rule during COVID is like, that wasn't anything new to me. There's actually a film called 6 Feet Apart, and it's about two people with CF that fell in love and they couldn't come within 6 feet of each other. So that's how it kind of affects the reproductive system that way, but also mucus can clog the reproductive pathways, I suppose. But if you keep your lungs clear and mucus clear and keep on running or exercising, then it's not as big of a problem. So I'm glad I cleared that up. It wasn't anything, it wasn't too exciting for you, Eric, was it?
I just turn my video off there for a second. No, what you've done this for 38 years. This has become very much part of your life. I suppose the other thing, obviously, you're very aware that it is. Did your parents take a route that they made you do sport? When did you discover that, okay, sport is longevity, and like I have, okay, I'm gonna ask and see how it lands. I have a fear if I have a race coming up and I have to train and I have to go out for it. Yours is I have to train to keep my lungs clear. Like, does that in itself get tiring, or is it motivating, or how do you mentally deal with all of that kind of stuff, or is it just part of your life?
I grew up wanting to be the best in the world, not with CF, just the best in the world. I was like, I have to be an Olympic champion. I'm ridiculously competitive. Like it doesn't matter what I do. I kind of have this just competitive streak that I have to beat the person, whatever it is. So I never looked at CF and was like that I'm going to die or anything like that. Well, actually, I'll tell a lie. I'd say it was probably, I'd say twice to three times I kind of when I was growing up and I said, why me? Why am I after getting CF? But I never thought about life expectancy at that age. But I remember there was one time when I was working over in Oregon in 2013, and I was that was 11 years ago, so it was 27. And in and around then, you're looking at other people. Like there's a CF group on Facebook, and you see like, oh, so and so has died, and RIP, and it was all in and around that time that I was just like, oh shit, like this is real. It's only a matter of time that I'm going to die then. And then you look at things like starting a family, or is it selfish to get married? Is it selfish to start a family as well? Like what actually should I even do that? You kind of start to go into kind of a dark area with that. But I've approached Yaz about it as well. That it was always a thing where what's the saying? You've rather love and lost than not love at all.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it was never a case that I felt like I had to go out and run. I just wanted to go out and be competitive and try beat whoever I was racing against. So it was a different mindset.
I suppose like that sport for people who are struggling with mental health issues ends up becoming an outlet because they find that competitive edge. They start thinking about more the competition than the mental side, or for you in your case, it's the CF side. Taking that competitiveness into your running, at what point did you realize, do you know what, CF or not, I am good. I can keep up with these guys. And what was that trajectory for you through your younger years moving on with it?
When I won that cross country race in my school uniform. But so a year after that, was the same race, but it kind of progressed into a track race on a cinder track in Tara AC. That's in Screen in Meath. And the coach asked me to join the club. So I joined the club, and I was running around thinking, Jesus, I'm really fast. I think I can break Michael Johnson's 400-meter record. But sure, the track was 340 meters, not 400. But it gave me confidence anyway. I felt unreal. So I stayed with Tara for a few years and then joined DSD, Dundrum South Dublin. So I would have travelled from Dunshaughlin to Dundrum 3 to 4 times a week. I never made the All Ireland cross country, but that year when I joined DSD, I made the All Irelands and came 21st. And then the next year it was better and better, and then ran for Ireland. Then the schools in, I actually don't know what year it was. Maybe 20. No, sorry, 2002, 2003, something like that. Yeah, so it was kind of, I just kept on running because I loved it, but also wanted to be better. And then I kind of realized in and around, so I was out on a run in November 2012 and had a seizure out in the run. I won a race the day beforehand, the November 10K, and I was going out to do an easy 90 minutes the day after with John Coughlin, Paul Robinson, who's still running. Eamon Coughlin was our coach, so John is Eamon's son, and Dave Fitzmaurice. And I dropped off. I can't remember running around half to Phoenix Park. Had a seizure, and John stayed with me, called an ambulance. But yeah, in and around that time, I can't remember November and December and part of January because I had another one Christmas Day and ended up in hospital again. So in and around that time, I was kind of thinking to myself, Jesus, is it really worth doing 120 miles every single week? And I'm like wrecked all the time. I'm starting a business. And then when I went away in 2013 then and working with Olympians, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, their easy pace is my hard pace. I'm like, I'm supposed to be competing against these. And then, so my half marathon time, I was like 7 minutes behind the Kenyan who was like winning at the time. And I was like, I'm doing 120 miles a week and I'm still 7 minutes behind them. Like, what else do I have to do? So I kind of fell out of love with competing, but I still trained. But I also then seen the other side of athletics where I was looking at more coaching rather than trying to compete against them. Because I wasn't going to be able to compete against them, but I could learn from the coaches that I was working with, that I was like, Jesus, I can learn from these to coach people then. And that was like the likes of Brother Colum or Canova, Alberto Salazar, if you want to throw his name into it for whatever reason. So I've been around like the best coaches that there has ever been in athletics. I just realized like with athletics, nearly everybody does the same thing. Everybody does 400s, thousands, tempos, long runs, easy runs. That's basically the foundation of every single training program out there. But what the difference was is the coaches put a belief into the athletes to make them believe that they're going to win. So like an Olympic final, there's less than 1% away from first and last. And what is that? What is that like 0.1% that's going to make them win? And I would put it down to mindset. So yeah, it's interesting to see different coaches and philosophies across the world. And
You have a lot of things in your CV, from sports therapist to strength coach and acupuncturist, nutritionist, and all the rest. How much did you, with what you just said there, how much did you put into learning about more about psychology and mindset and stuff to build your athletes, to install belief into them?
probably when around 2014, I started to learn how to meditate. I kind of this sounds real hippie, and that I do ice baths now every day as well. But yeah, I started to learn how to meditate. Went to Buddhism Ireland. I'm not a Buddhist, by the way, but I was like, these invented it. They must be pretty good at it. I actually went to the first opening night is every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month or something like that. But I went in, I was like, I'm definitely in the wrong area here. It looks like there's recovering heroin addicts here. Like, what am I doing here? But I learned how to meditate, so it's pretty good. And I realized that when you're trying to meditate first, there's like 30 seconds feels like 3 hours. And then 3 hours or 3 minutes just felt like I was there forever. But you learn that like our mind is a muscle. And if you can't control it for 3 minutes, how are you going to control it for a marathon or an ultra marathon in your case? Or even for 3 minutes in a 1500. Going into the call room is one of the most intense environments ever. Like you have the 12 people that you're racing against in a little tiny room, and you're just like freaking each other out.
Volleyballing
And
each other.
yeah, pretty mansplaining and everything. Like it's ridiculous. So I found a study that if you sit like this, so I have my hands behind my head, like you're kind of think about like in a board meeting, this fella just trying to show his his testosterone or something like that. But so if you sit like this, your testosterone increases. So with whoever I was coaching, and I'd send them into the call room, I was like, just sit there. Even if it doesn't increase that much, just sit there like that. And everybody's going to be like, what is this lad doing? Instead of doing like tuck jumps or stretching or like clapping their quads like people do when they're nervous or giving their legs a little shake, just sit there, because everybody's going to be looking at you going, what is this lad doing? And then that freaks everybody else out then. Why is he so relaxed? But yeah, I don't even know if that study's true or not, but it worked anyway. So I realized that mindset is a huge aspect to it. Going into a race thinking like your mental energy is nearly worn out during taper week. And if our mind works at about our mind takes up about 20% of our calorie intake. So if when you're then nervous or stressed, it rises to about 30%. So if you're trying to use your calories and energy for a marathon for the course of whatever, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, if you're already overthinking and stressing, you're consuming more calories than what you need. Or your mind is consuming up the calories that you need. But yeah, I think there's a combination of things that kind of led me to believe that. But I suppose that's the short synopsis of it. It wasn't that short though.
It's interesting that you say learning how to meditate. How long does it, there is no finite answer, but how long does it take to get, like we know it takes a couple of weeks to get comfortable at running and comfortable at intervals. Is it the same for meditation? Or is
I think
this
so,
a
yeah.
constant path of learning that just takes a long time, or can people tap into it quickly in the course, say a marathon training program, if they were training with you and you added in meditation, is that something that you could get accomplished with by the end of the marathon?
So I do an 18-week block. So if you can't meditate at the start of an 18-week block, even 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, it's better than what it was previously. So you're still progressing basically. And I think a lot of people think that meditating is just sitting down and in a quiet room with, I don't know, whale noises or something, but it's yeah, just white noise in the background. But if I'd meditate every day, but it could be if I'm chopping an onion or making dinner. I don't have a podcast on or music on. I'm present in the moment that I'm doing. So I'm making mashed potatoes, and I know I'm making mashed potatoes instead of going, oh, what did that dickhead say to me or do to me or whatever. You're in the moment. You're not thinking about the past or the future. But also, let's say you do sit down in a dark room with your eyes closed and your mind wanders and you're thinking, oh no, I'm here for 3 minutes. You're defeating the purpose because you're waiting for the 3 minutes to be up. So if you need to scratch your nose, but we think you're not supposed to scratch your nose, just scratch your nose. Like that's being in the moment. I have an itchy nose, I need to scratch it.
Do you recommend any tools for meditation, or do you think it needs to, like, any apps or anything like that, or do you think here you just need to switch on up here?
I started off with guided meditation because I needed something there to like a coach to guide me to know what to do instead of just sitting there with my eyes closed going, what do I think about? But yeah, like what's it called? The apps, Headspace. That's pretty good, but you'd have to pay for a lot of that. So just go onto YouTube and put in guided meditation or body scanning or something like that. Going back to ice baths actually for a second.
Yeah, do actually.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't believe in ice baths for injuries, but if you want me to get into that, I will. But in terms of meditation and getting that really good endorphins, it's good for that because you're not thinking what's for dinner later on. You're thinking I'm freezing, I am so cold. That's meditation. You're in that moment going, holy shit, I'm freezing, instead of what's for dinner, or why did your man look at me like that, Super Value?
You're definitely present, all right, when you're freezing in a bathtub like that. That does make sense. Going back a second to your coaching, you say you're like 7 minutes behind the Kenyans, didn't quite get there, but like you have worked with a lot of Olympians and stuff like that now over the last couple of years. Is that working with high levels? And you talked there a second ago about like percentage difference between winning and losing. Is that a little intimidating to train with such high levels and coaching them and just trying to find the little percentages here and there that makes the difference between getting on a podium and not?
Intimidating for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to
Well,
start, I was like, what am I doing here?
yeah. Because we all get that imposter kind of syndrome when we
Yeah,
start coaching.
definitely.
But yet you're going in with, Olympic level athletes and stuff like that, and I can only imagine exponentially how greater that could be.
I think there's if you see like a Kenyan or Ethiopian or someone who's winning, do you think that like they have science, they have their training down to a T science wise, or their nutrition or whatever? Do you kind of automatically think that?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you would. Well,
Yeah,
not
they haven't the clue, to be honest with you. They just do what they're told to do. They're like machines. Like I remember McLuffy, who has 3 Olympic medals. So I probably worked to him the closest. So yeah, he won the 2012 Olympics 1500, and then in 2016 he was second in the 800 and 1500. So you know the way beetroot, the nitric oxide, sorry, where it helps you with endurance and all that sort of stuff. So everyone thinks it's only in beetroot. It's in higher quantity in rocket, as in the leafy salad. It's in loads of other things, but people think it's good for your blood because it's the color of blood, beetroot or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah. So if I told them that it's good for like inflammation and helping with endurance and blah blah blah, I don't know where he got it, but a huge bucket came back full of rocket, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he was eating it like popcorn, like he was taking it and eating it like popcorn. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "You told me it was good for me." And I was like, "Yeah, but like make a salad and have a bit tomorrow." And he's like, "I'll just buy another bucket tomorrow." Okay. Kenyans don't use like protein shakes or anything like that, or like creatine or anything. What they'd have for breakfast before a run is like a bit of bread with tea. So their tea is like half hot water, half hot milk and tea, and then about 20 teaspoons of sugar. Then they come back, have tea, have bread, and they have something that's like, it's kind of like ready break, but like runny.
like thing, is it?
It's not ugali that people probably think what I'm explaining is ugali, but it's basically like ready break, and they drink it. They don't need a spoon. It's just carbs, and they'd have that with loads of honey. They're pretty much vegetarian, even if they were given a choice. Meat's expensive over there, but they're pretty much vegetarian, even if they did have the choice. Loads of lentils and pulses and stuff like that. But yeah, they don't really know much about plyometrics or strength and conditioning. They just do what they're told to do. I think the
I
more
know.
you overthink it, the more you're like, you're searching for other things. You're like, I need to do this. What if there's something else better? Instead of just going, I believe in my coach. He's telling me to do it. It must be good.
That was literally my next question. Are we overthinking it with so many different, recovery strategies, types of food, and all the rest, and just getting your recovery shake or meals and all the rest? And but if the Kenyans are just having bread and cups of tea and buckets of rocket, it sounds like a winning formula there.
Yeah. And even in terms of like facilities, like Ireland is absolutely flooded with facilities. Like, where's the nearest gym? Sean, you live in Qatar or something, or Dubai or something, is it?
That'd be Eric lives in Dubai there now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, right.
So, well, there's probably a gym next door to you. How,
No, I'm living in a bit of a camp, so I have a 1 kilometer road that I just run laps of. That's about the height of the excitement for me. So, but there is great facilities within 40 minutes drive. Some of the best facilities they built for
oh.
future Olympics and stuff. So, but where I am, yeah, no, it's fair. It's limited, but you can access it.
Yeah, yeah. So I live in Navan, and 600 meters away there's a gym, and in the other direction, in a mile away, there's a gym. We have gyms everywhere. There's 2 tracks in Navan, about 400 meters, and then another 8 kilometers away, there's that 340-meter track. We have tracks everywhere, 2 indoor tracks. Australia don't have an indoor track. So like you were thinking, oh, well, then they're going to be shit indoors, but like they're not, they're good. Kenyans they don't really have a running track. They have a cinder, or not a cinder track, a dirt track. but they just make do what they have. They don't overthink it. They just run. They go, we need more facilities. We need more facilities. We don't at all. Like, we're spoiled for them.
Is it the altitude they have then, or look? I'm still looking for answers.
So there's as to why they're so good.
Yeah, is it
Okay,
altitude?
so take if I said to you Brazil, what's the first thing you think about?
Soccer, football,
If I say New Zealand,
rugby.
yeah. So there's a history of excellence in those countries, and the history of excellence in Kenya is athletics. That's one thing. It's a way out of poverty, and there was a stat that 93% of them do it for economic reasons. Because like you could, back when it first started, you either run, earn loads of money, and feed your family and look after your whole family, or else just be a farmer earning like $1 a day or whatever it is. Probably not even $1. So yeah, you're the next rock star if you're the next runner in Kenya. So that's the social economic reason. Black people have more. This sounds like I'm going to get cancelled here, but black people have more red blood cells than white people. Red blood cells carry oxygen, so they have more. It's not just Ethiopia; it's just Kenya. It's just black people have more red blood cells. Then they have longer tendons, and a tendon is a spring, so they're able to load a spring and then basically let go of that spring. There was a study done as well of what is the main difference between white athletes and black athletes. So they only found, apart from the red blood cells, from your knee down to your ankle is a lever that has to basically go like a circle all the time when we're running. The bigger the mass of your calves, the slower or more energy consumption that uses. So every time you run, that lever carries a heavier weight around all the time. So if you look at Kenyans or Ethiopians' calves, they're basically like your forearm. There's no calf; it's just like straight down. So they have less energy consumption with every stride.
I wish you told me that before the calf race this morning. Thanks for that.
Yeah, but you look better in shorts.
Thank you very much, Evan. Thank you.
And then you look at altitude then as well. So they're born at altitude. So that's another thing with red blood cells as well. So when they come down to sea level, they're used to training with little or less oxygen, or not. It's not less oxygen. Sorry, it's heavier. The air isn't thinner. It's because it's the same ratio of air, oxygen, whatever. It's just heavier, so it's harder to breathe in.
How did you manage, and I suppose it's one question people are probably having, how did you start getting involved with Olympians? What was your background or the gateway into working with these top athletes?
So remember I said I had a seizure in 2012. In and around that time, I can't remember this, but I was talking with Alberto Salazar by email. And then I went over.
Other people were on MSN fucking trying to chat people up. You were emailing athletes.
So then March or April 2013, then I was over with the Oregon Project then.
Oh wow.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then
then I started doing the mobile. So I suppose when you're doing that, it opens doors to every other Olympian and Olympic champion. That's basically what happened. I don't really have a good story about it.
When you got into that, then did it take over training them that competitive spirit, or was it like, I need to get back to doing, like, how much of a gap did you take after getting a seizure in the Phoenix Park? Your coaching career started to take off, you're training Olympians, and I know a couple of years later you started to get back into doing the marathon and stuff like that. Was there a couple of years where you were just doing, obviously you had to run or train or something, or you needed to, were you doing a little bit here and there, or were you trying to keep the intensity higher? Like, how was those couple of years in between that and doing a 3:09 in your Dublin Marathon in 2017?
So when I was training, when I was working with the Olympians, I do their easy runs with them, or else if the girls are doing a session, I do a session with them. So I kind of just didn't really race. But even when I was younger, I'd look at, I never really liked racing. I'd always be, or maybe I'd like racing if I did well, but I'd never go into a race thinking, oh, I can't wait for this. I'd always overthink it. I'd always be too nervous. I'd be looking at someone's socks going, oh, those socks are better than mine. I'd just be thinking way too much about things, putting too much pressure on myself. So I tried after in 2013, 2014, 15 and 16, I tried to get as big as possible, as in muscular wise. But like I'm 58 kilos at the moment. I topped out at 66. And this is me using weight gainers and deadlifting 120 kilos. Like I'm just not built to get big. uh, so my friend came back from America and he's ran a 2:17 marathon. So actually I coached, he was 4 years younger than me. I coached him when I was 16, which is weird. And then he joined Clonmouth. But yeah, it was that's the first person I've actually coached. And then yeah, so he came home from New York and I was training with him. My neighbour in Dunshaughlin is also a 2:17 runner, Tommy Marr, and I'd always see him out running and whatnot when I was growing up. So he saw me doing a bit more running and he was like, "Oh, you doing the marathon this year?" I was like, "That is the stupidest idea I've ever heard." Went home. I was like, fastest person with CF. I Googled it and I was like, I don't have to beat that. I'll sign up. So that's basically that's basically how I was like, right, I'll do Dublin. So that was in January. So I knew I had to get marathon fit and then take a break and then go into marathon race fit from June onwards to Dublin. Dublin, my first marathon was an absolute disaster. So I should have ran a marathon when I ran 107 for a half. I should have ran a marathon when I did that, but it's like I was like mid-20s or early 20s. It was ludicrous to do marathons at that age back then. Where now it's kind of just a given. Like you can, I had someone in the other week. He's 19, and he was like, "Oh, I'm doing the marathon." I was like, "Sorry,
Oh,
what?"
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
maybe
dude.
you shouldn't.
Yeah.
He's not, but yeah, thank God he didn't. But yeah, so I got into reasonable shape for Dublin, and I was like, I think I could run about 2:45, 2:46, and I was on course for that up until UCD flyover. So
Oh,
that's 23 miles, and I can remember Jerry Kiernan there, and I was just like, oh, he had just a big stern face on him, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm after going into a huge cramp here right in front of him." He's like, I was thinking, "Oh yeah, he didn't train enough." That's what is going through his head. But so, at a cellular level, CF is a salt regulation problem. So the protein that opens and closes a cell, I don't have. So salt just escapes the body. So 23 miles, actually at 13 miles going through Crumlin, I can't taste salt. I can't taste salt in food. It would have to be a mountain of salt for me to taste it. And I started to taste salt in the back of my throat, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" I was like, "Well, I get someone to go into McDonald's here and just get me a sachet of salt because that's basically what would I'd need." I was like, "Ah, that's a stupid idea. What? Like, I'd be grand." So I got to mile 23, and I looked down. I had black shorts on, and there was, that salt you get in like your forehead.
Hmm.
I was covered in it. My shorts were white. My shoes were white. They were navy, but they were white. I was just covered in like layers of salt. I went into salt depletion, but I didn't think it at the time. I thought I just ran out of carbs. So someone was handing out Red Bull, and I was like, "Oh, fuck it, I'll take Red Bull." But it was sugar-free Red Bull. Like everything was just against me
ah,
after 23
Oh.
miles. So yeah, I was on for 2:46 at that time, and I ran 3:09 when I crossed the line. I don't know how. I can't work out how long it took me it was probably, I think, oh no, I do remember it was 12 minutes per mile is what I was doing for the last 3 months. I just couldn't do anything more. I was dying. But yeah, it's crazy. I knew this growing up, but I didn't realize how it would affect me at 23 miles. But yeah, you live and learn. Um, so I've covered the distance in a marathon 5 times. So Dublin, Then Milan, I tore my Achilles 3 weeks out, and I was on Diphene for 3 weeks. I wouldn't advise this, by the way. Took Diphene at the start line, and then more like halfway around, I took another 90 minutes later, took more Diphene, which, yeah, don't do that. But yeah, I think I ran a slower time that day, but I needed to finish. Under Armour brought myself and Scully over to do it. And he didn't run, and I was like, I need to drop out, but it's like, oh, it's gonna look really bad on Irish people that we're not. He didn't start, and I dropped out, so I was like, I have to finish. So I can't remember what I ran that day. Was it 3:15 or something like that? I can't remember, but I didn't run for months after that. I was in bits. Then Paris, was it Paris next? Oh no, I ran 2:55 in training during COVID. 2:56 or 2:55. And yes, it was in around my 5K radius as well. But that sounds
I
worse
wouldn't
than
have
what it
judged you in
is.
that one.
Well, you
I
do
remember I said I
ultramarathons,
broke
so
that one now during that time. They did that the weekend of marathon, was like down to 5K or 2K. I'm like, no, can't do it for that. So I'll out myself on that one. I think my Strava out me in it as well. So I won't judge you in that. I just want to go back a quick second to the before you say the other two. One of the reasons we've heard about you being the podcast, I want to quote this. Just one of our listeners, Owen McCarthy, said, all the great stuff you've done, but he said, and I quote, genius when it comes to Achilles injuries. And there you are telling me what exactly not to do when come to a marathon. I'm like, I need all the help I can get here. And I was like, no, just dive in and just go for a run and just go for your best. Thanks very much, Evan.
Yeah, Owen has an Achilles injury. I think he messaged, or is him or his wife messaged me about an Achilles problem and what to do, and he's gone to get shockwave and every other I suppose treatment. I've been plagued with an Achilles injury since I was, that's 17. I was this is actually, it sounds like a made up story. I went over to Haile Gebrselassie when I was 17 or 16, one or the other, I can't remember what age, to live with him. Like it was kind of like a Michael Jackson moment. Like my parents set me over on my own to live with Haile Gebrselassie. Like what? That's it's like Macaulay Culkin. Like, or I suppose nowadays Diddy.
Why are you bringing
But
all
yeah,
that up? It doesn't matter.
so yeah, I was out in a room with him and I dislocated my ankle. He put it back in. I was 3,200 meters above sea level. He's not qualified to put dislocated ankles back in, but yeah, I believed it because he's an Olympic champion and 27 world records. So yeah, I ran back down to 2,600 meters. My ankle was huge. Then it started hurting. Went to some witch doctor. I don't know what he did, but it gave me relief. But my ankle's been screwed up since. So any sort of load that I put into it too soon, too quickly, it just flares up. So in terms of treatment for it, this sounds like the worst advice ever, but don't stop running. You can run through an Achilles injury. I don't think what I'm saying is anything new in terms of what's after coming out. Like tendons love load. You've heard about the Alfredson protocol, the eccentric calf raises and isometric calf raises.
Oh yeah, sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I would have reached out to him to try figure out how to treat Achilles injury. So his name's Hakan Alfredson. He'd treat like Ibrahimovic and loads of footballers and stuff like that. So it's his story was he partially ruptured his Achilles. He's a surgeon. He was a trainee surgeon at the time. His boss said, we can't do surgery on you because we need you doing surgery. So he was like, right, I'm just going to go home and rupture it completely. So he has to do surgery on me. So he started doing eccentric calf raises with loads of weights, doing 180 of them a day and fix it.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
so now that protocol is called the Alfredson protocol. Sorry, Jesus. So another thing apart from that is a thing called Cyrex friction. So you have to put the ankle joint into an elongated. So you're basically stretching the tendon and the calf, and then you're cross fiber frictioning the hell out of the Achilles.
With?
Yeah, with your thumbs. And it does hurt. But there's a muscle called your plantaris that originates behind your knee, and it's about maybe like 2 to 3 inches long, and it crosses from lateral to medial, from the outside of your leg to the inside of your calf, crossing over your knee pit, and then the tendon starts high up in the calf and then goes down into your Achilles, and there's about 14 different attachment points in and around where your Achilles attaches to your heel bone, and it depends on who you are, depending on the attachment, basically. So in a very, very high percentage of times, it's actually your plantaris that's the issue and not your calf or Achilles. So you could be working on your Achilles all the time, but you actually should be treating the plantaris.
You have probably changed the world for God knows how many people listening to this podcast at that statement. There's a lot of people rubbing the back of their knees now going, that fucker.
Yeah. And the muscle isn't actually needed. You can take it out. You don't actually need that muscle.
It's like the appendix of the legs, is it?
Yeah, pretty much. So you can, it's kind of used for a bit of stability of the knee, but like it's not. You can, yeah, just take it out.
Just go fucking that for the morning.
Just go to the butcher and say, "Here, just take this out, will you?"
Bite down on the towel, you'll be all right.
Yeah. So then, in terms of if you do have an Achilles injury, and don't stop running, but you need to find out where that threshold is that overloads the tendon. So you need to, if that's 5 minutes a day, that's what you have to do. But once you go over that threshold, it goes into a rebuilding and modeling stage. So it can get stuck in the second or third phase of remodeling. So what you need to do is bring it back and then trick the Achilles into the final stage of recovery. It takes a huge amount of patience because people don't want to do 5 minutes a day. They think it's pointless. They might as well do nothing. But then when you do nothing and then go out and do another 10 minutes in like 2 weeks' time, your Achilles is going to be like, what are you doing to me? I'm going to flare up again. Yeah. So you need to trick it to thinking that it's okay.
Right. So keep running. That's what I got from that.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're the first person that's, I said it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and there's been a few people, I'm great to go back to them now. They're like, you shouldn't be running. What are you running for? And I'm like, I have to. I know sometimes when I run, it feels okay. If I don't run for a while, I'll wake up during the night with pain in it. And then sometimes I'll do one type of run. And I did a 2x10K at a marathon pace there over the weekend. And I felt it then that night, but not as bad. When I had done nothing for a week or so, it felt really bad. And I'm like, I think I need to run on this. And it just counterintuitive to run instead of rest. But it's not as bad as it was when I was talking about it a while ago on the podcast. Real quick on that though, your thought on shockwave therapy for that or injuries in general. Do you think you just need to work through? You think it's good?
Yeah. To bring that down, that initial inflammation, yeah, it's pretty good.
Brilliant.
Tendons have really poor blood supply, so that's why when you're running, it's bringing fresh blood into the area, and blood fixes things as well. So blood fixes things. You can quote that.
That's going to be a topic of discussion. Blood fixes things.
Great name for the episode.
For yourself, with your running and stuff now, like we talked about at the start of the podcast, you hit the world record for a CF in doing a 5K up to a half marathon now. Your Dublin one was a European record holder at the time for that. I'm not too sure if it is now or not. But in terms of your own running, do you have any other goals that keeps you out there, or is just I need to keep out there?
I love the process of running rather than racing. So I was supposed to do Valencia last year, actually, and my iron went to shite. It just went down to like, basically I couldn't run. So I pulled out of Valencia, and then I'd say I was probably doing about, I did, do you know the trim 10 mile?
Yes, does we only be March every year, I think. It's very hard to get into.
February, yeah. So my longest run before that was like 11 miles, and then I ran 58 minutes or 59 minutes, something like that. And then I was like, oh, I've loads of time for Bohermeen half, and I didn't, but I ran like 118 or 119 on it. And then I just kind of floated. I was just kind of going, oh, I'll just do a bit of running like whoever I was coaching, I was trying to pace for their races. And then we had our first child there 3 months ago. So yeah, that kind of changed perspective on training. I still got out and ran. Like I'm probably up to 30 miles a week, or that's like 40 to 50K. But yeah, I'm kind of just running without a purpose. I'm just enjoying running. I'll go out and connect with the birds in the trees.
Oh, don't look at me. I wasn't saying that. I've already lived in the gutter for the first half. I came out of it.
You're still thinking about that shower though, aren't you?
Jesus Christ.
The amount of listeners that are going to stop listening after this episode.
Evan, you seem like an open book there, talking with athletes and you know, training such high levels, and you're talking about something we've never really talked about in the podcast, the margins of like the difference between winning and losing, and like even there you're saying like I'm not saying Kenyans in particular for this question, but just you're like 93% is economic reasons, and you see more and more people now are getting advertisement in athletics, and amateur racing is going like it's almost like professional level at this stage, and you know where money is, any which way to win is there. Do you, I'm not asking for names or anything like that, or maybe it's something that Sean, this doesn't happen. They're just that good. Face it, you're not a great runner, Sean. Is there do you see doping a lot in track athletes?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So on the circuit, Ethiopia is called Ethiopia. In Kenya, there's like syringes on the tracks. Like I don't know why you'd put a needle into you in a track or just before training, or no, sorry, I don't know why you put a needle in you in the first place. But yeah, certain you'd see in the last Olympics, like you're looking at progression, and you're kind of going, how did someone go from this to this in such a short period of time? And there's been a huge push in the last maybe 3 years, I'd say, that times are just, you're looking at them going, how is that possible? And I don't think sorry, I do think it partly to do with the shoes, but the shoes have been out since 2016. So how in the last 3 years are things just after getting like records are just getting blown out of it? It makes no sense to me. So in 2016 in Kenya, there was a thing called O3. It's a gas, and it does the same as EPO, but it's undetectable. So I think it's probably time that. Do you remember Balco, the Bay Area laboratory? There's actually a good thing on Netflix. What's it called? It's with Victor Conte anyway. It's kind of like a half an hour documentary. And Victor Conte is the fella who came up with Balco. So this is where Marion Jones back in 2000, early 2000s, Marion Jones and a few other people who have been caught already, Tim Montgomery, they were all on designer drugs. Undetectable, nobody could find out about them. And Victor Conte is actually a good person to follow on Twitter for that sort of stuff. There was a FBI came in, and
wasn't it? Isn't that the one? They were a sports nutrition company, was how they originally started.
Yeah. Like Barry Bonds, the baseballer, he was linked to it and everything like this. So I'd say there's probably about time that another designer drug came along. But yeah, I think like what you were saying, if there's money there, there's corruption there. So yeah, like it's kind of weird as well with the ratio of people getting caught to the amount that's tested. So you're probably looking one in every 1,000 people that get tested get caught, but only 3 in the Olympics got caught, and there was 10,000 athletes there.
Wow.
Yeah, race doesn't add up.
No. And then people are like, oh, well, how do you get away with it? EPO is only detectable in your body between the 4th and 13th hour after you take it.
That is such a short window to catch as well.
Now, there's other ways to get caught, like in a regular passport. So your hematocrit, the percentage of red blood cells in your blood. So if you go above 50%, you either are on EPO or you have hemochromatosis. So you usually go people around 37 to 44%, and this depends if you're male or female. So if you go above 50, you have hemochromatosis or you're on EPO. So, but if you are first tested and your hematocrit levels are 47 and you go to 48 or 49, that's still biologically possible. But if you first got tested and you're 40 and then all of a sudden you're 49, that's not possible. So that's the irregular passport that comes in then. And you can get banned on that then as well.
Is this why I'm a little bit out of my area of expertise in this one? So I'm kind of half quoting different things. Like in MMA, if they get injured, they take themselves out of the USADA testing pool and stuff to have, and then when they come back, the levels are at something from the 6 months, presumably getting back from injury, taking whatever they can and come back in. They're at a baseline level. So if you weren't tested for a while for whatever reason and you had that baseline of whatever it is, you come back into it, they're like, well, that's your current level, even if it was brought up there by whatever they're taking, it wouldn't make it, they wouldn't be able to catch it then. Is that a similar thing?
In a way, yeah, but it's not as easy as that. So actually, a few years ago, the UFC was the most tested sport in the world, which it was surprising to me.
Yeah.
So with athletics, if you retire, you have 6 months post-retirement that you can still be tested. But then when you come back into the sport, you still have 6 months that you're tested. You have to give them notice that you're back in the sport. So that's nearly a year that you're tested. So
Right.
it doesn't really work in athletics unless you took like 4 years off or something and came back. So yeah, it doesn't. I don't know how much it works with that with UFC. You do hear about it with certain people who haven't fought in years that bulk up huge, and then all of a sudden they're injured and bulk up with lean mass, and then they're like, oh yeah, we'll fight again, but can't get tested. But yeah, I'm not sure how much it works with other sports.
That's fair.
And having done so much yourself and have gone through many walls and many runs and done some training, have you any advice for us who are not the biggest cocktail we have is burgers and pints after running? What is your advice for us who are looking to get the extra gains for ourselves if we find we're reaching plateaus in terms of our training, and for the listeners who listen who are not competing with the Kenyans and who are just looking to get their PBs on both the mental side and the physical side? Have you any advice for them?
I think people train too hard. So the only way I can talk to Irish people about this is using points as an analogy. So
Well, listen.
Excuse my language.
So let's say on a Tuesday you have your club training, and I say to people, do 5K effort. And they go off and they don't do 5K effort, they do like 1,500-meter effort or something. They're going to the well during that session, and they wake up the next day and they can't run or don't want to run because they're too tired, or their motivation isn't there because they just emptied the tank from the day beforehand. So if you look at binge drinking and you have 10 points in one night, you're not going to want to drink for a good while, probably a few weeks. So then you're limited to 10 points. Let's say you did it again in a week. You have 10 points in 1 week, where if you had 2 points every single day, that's 14 points at the end of a week instead of 10. So you're getting more volume of beers in. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, never mind running.
So then you can progress that to 3 points a day, and now all of a sudden you're at 21 points instead of you're still stuck at 10. So if you slow it down slightly to what your 5K effort is supposed to be, you can go out the next day and do another run. Then on Thursday you can come back and do another session at the specific training zone you're supposed to be in. So I think slowing it down, not having this guilt, or it's probably Catholic guilt brought into running, that you just have to punish yourself all the time. So I think that's part to do with it. But also people overthinking it, like I have to have I always, when people come to me with things like I need to do this in training or whatever it is, I'm like, do you reckon Kipchoge does that? And they're like, no. And I was like, so what makes you think that you need to do it then?
It's a good point.
So yeah, slowing down. Fueling is a huge thing. So there's a few times that, and most recently a girl I coach. So if you go out for, let's say we're using marathon training as an example, and you go out and do 20 miles or 32K, that's around 2,000 calories that you have just burnt on that run. So you have to make that back up. So now if you're a female, you're looking at 2,000 calories. Then to just survive. Then you need 2,000 calories to make up for what you lost. And then you need to fuel for the next day. So now you're probably looking at like 4,500, 5,000 calories in one day. People aren't doing that. And then what I said to people, my fastest marathon, I weighed my heaviest. I was 62 kilos. In my slowest marathon, I was 53 kilos. So I never got injured going into my fastest marathon. I felt fresh. I was able to put the training in and I ran faster. So you could eat more and you run faster, where people think you need to have race weight. Like, what's race weight? That's just a made up thing of what you think you look your best at. Like how many kilos, like does 1 kilo represent 1 minute? Like what's the ratio between losing 5 kilos to how many minutes faster you're going to run? It's nonsense. So going into the day before a long run, I would eat way more than what I would have usually. So I'm nearly mini carb loading. I take a weight gainer where it has like 600 calories in it. And then the day of the run afterwards, I get another weight gainer in, another 600 calories without even thinking about it. Like, to eat 600 calories is a dinner basically. But I'm getting a dinner into me within like 30 seconds. Plus another dinner. So I'm now looking at way more calories than what I would have. And a calorie is a unit of energy, and energy is power.
Evan,
So
I've
eat
learned
more
eat more.
and run easier.
And then if you're struggling with the maths and the calories to add it all up, just think of it in terms of beers. And that's how I do my maths now, thanks to you. And it just gets there. Evan, if someone's listening to this podcast for the last hour, I'm conscious of your time at the moment. Where can they actually use you as a coach, or do you just train Olympic athletes?
Oh no! Like, there's people who are doing 5 hours that I coach to 2 hours. Like I don't care what you actually run. I just want you to run faster than what you are at the moment. So if you're 5 hours and I get you to 4 hours, perfect. But yeah, I don't care who I coach. I just want you to run faster. So yeah, Evan runs at Instagram, evanscully.com. Can't remember what Twitter is, but just type in my name and it should come up. Or evan.scully@gmail.com if you want to email me.
Absolutely brilliant. Evan, we'll have those.
And I have an OnlyFans account if you want that as well.
Evan, we'll leave with the OnlyFans and the show notes, the podcast and everything else. Once you get through some of the OnlyFans content, maybe that's everything else there for you. It's better than white noise to meditate, I suppose. I don't know.
Only signing up for the shower special. That's it.
And on that note, Evan, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. Absolutely brilliant. We'll have those in the show notes. And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Day podcast with myself, Eric, and Evan. Take care.
Lovely, lads.